The Vortan executioners left the Terran outpost in flames, then broadcasted the footage across 6 star systems as a warning. They called it Operation Silence. They called it justified. They forgot one thing. Humans don't forget. The ruins of Outpost Lancer still smoldered, even in vacuum. Melted steel floated like ash in the absence of gravity, drifting past severed bulkheads and shattered armor. Among the wreckage, a signal pulsed, weak but alive. A single pod, cored in ferroglass, cracked open. Inside it, a man sat still, covered in blood that wasn't his. His name, Commander Elias Vorn, age 37, once of Terran Strategic Command. Now presumed dead. He opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the Earth flag, burnt, half-torn, floating toward him in silence. He reached for it. And remembered. 2 weeks earlier, Elias had stood on the ridge above Lancer's command dome. The stars overhead were still. The quiet before history snapped. "I'm telling you, sir," Lieutenant Mara said beside him, adjusting her scanner. "The Vortan aren't negotiating. They're stalling." Vorn didn't respond immediately. His eyes followed the flicker of a distant Vortan freighter, their version of a white flag, if you squinted hard enough. Too sleek. Too early. "They never stall without a strike plan in place," he said finally. "How long until their cruiser is in firing position?" Mara tapped her screen. 10 minutes. Pull non-essentials below. Lock power to shield grid. Prep drone countermeasures. You think they'll jump the treaty? I think they already have." He turned back toward base. And never saw her again. The blast came 3 minutes later. Lancer's eastern ridge vanished in white. The shield grid fractured. Power relays blew. The command dome cracked at the seams. Elias shoved 2 medtechs into an escape shaft, sealed the door, and ran against the fire line until the floor gave out beneath him. He fell 4 stories into blackout. Now, in the silence of post-death, Vorn stood again. Gravity boots engaged with a magnetic click as he pushed from the ruined corridor, navigating charred catwalks and ruptured systems. Emergency lights blinked like dying stars. He found a helmet. Bloodied. Still warm. He slid it on. Voices crackled in the comlink, old echoes, looping from the black box. Colon. "They're firing! It's not a drill! Vorn's down! Repeat, Vorn's... Colon." He turned off the playback. Enough mourning. Time for inventory. Left arm bruised. 3 cracked ribs. Oxygen at 28%. Weapon? Just his sidearm, half-charged. It would do. He found a working console in the engineering wing. Tapped into system logs. What he saw made him still. A live feed. The Vortan flagship still hovered above Lancer. Not retreating. Not looting. Broadcasting. A recording on loop. "Humanity's expansion ends here. This is your final lesson." Vorn blinked slowly. Noted. Elsewhere, on the bridge of the Vortan dreadnought Severance, Archregent Stryl folded his arms and watched the screens with satisfaction. "We leave the wreckage in orbit," he ordered. "Let the corpses speak for us." His adjutant, a neural-linked insectoid, clacked its mandibles. "Survivor probability under 0.003%. "Good," Stryl said. "No martyrs." Back below, Elias Vorn stared at the looped footage again. Then opened a secondary system, message relays. All outbound communications had been firewalled. But one signal band remained unmonitored. Old. Analog. Vorn patched into it using a converted maintenance beacon. He tuned the frequency manually. The code he transmitted was 9 digits long. A relic from the Terran core rebellions. Protocol Revenant. It meant one thing. They killed a commander. Now command was coming back. 12 hours later, the Vortan sensor arrays picked up a ghost. No formal ships. No war declarations. Just static, then silence, then a coded spike. From Sol. From Earth. It was supposed to be crippled. Disarmed. Recovering from its last war. And yet. 5 Terran stealth ships arrived at the Lancer wreck within 2 hours. Not marked. Not acknowledged. Just there. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They retrieved one body. Inside the extraction shuttle, Vorn sat upright, breathing pure air for the first time in days. Across from him sat Marshal Isla Rourke, scarred, silent, older than him by decades. One of the last surviving architects of Earth's orbital defense strategy. "You're not supposed to be alive," she said. "Neither is the outpost," he replied. She nodded once. "You sent Revenant." "I did." Rourke stared at him. "That means war." Vorn met her eyes. "No. That means response." He reached into his jacket. Pulled out the scorched Terran flag he'd found floating in the wreckage. "Every extinct empire had one thing in common," he said. Rourke tilted her head. "They all underestimated us." In the Vortan archives, nestled deep within the core of their capital system, historians would later trace the collapse of their dominion to a singular moment. Not a weapon, not a battle. A man. Walking out of a grave. Carrying a flag. The shuttle touched down on Earth like a ghost returning to its birthplace, quiet, unannounced, and carrying the dead. Commander Elias Vorn stepped out into the night air of the Sierra Bastion military complex, one of the last sky-shielded installations on the planet. Overhead, the atmosphere shimmered with kinetic latticework, orbital defense nets designed to stop meteor strikes and invasion fleets alike. He barely noticed. Earth smelled different. Sharper. Filtered. Like the world was holding its breath. A young officer greeted him at the ramp. Uniform crisp. Eyes uncertain. "Commander Vorn," she said. "You're supposed to be dead," he finished. "Yeah. I get that a lot lately." She hesitated. "Marshal Rourke's waiting in command. I'm not here to wait." Command was a bunker carved into granite, layered with encrypted fiber, reinforced steel, and the ghosts of too many briefings. Vorn stepped through the door, and time folded. Everyone turned. Conversations froze. Some saluted. Most stared. He nodded once, but kept moving. Rourke stood at the far end of the war table, arms crossed, projection map glowing in her eyes. "Lancer?" she asked without looking up. "Gone. And the Vortan? They're calling it a final lesson." Rourke's jaw tightened. Vorn dropped a data chip on the table. "Footage. Communications. Sensor logs. Everything they didn't destroy." She picked it up. "We'll analyze." "No. You'll release it." That made her pause. He continued, voice level. "Let every human colony see what they did. No edits. No narration. Just truth." She met his eyes. "You think outrage wins wars?" "No. But lies lose them." The footage hit civilian networks 2 hours later. Outpost Lancer, charred bodies, collapsed domes, the Vortan broadcast looping like a gloating chant. No music. No voiceover. Just fire and silence. The reaction came fast. Mars flared first, militias swearing retaliation. Europa pulled funding from interspecies diplomacy. Even distant Titan, usually apolitical, held a planetary blackout in mourning. Earth? Earth stayed quiet. Too quiet. That night, Rourke called him into her office. She poured him a drink. Real whiskey. Not synth. "You earned this," she said. He didn't take it. "What are we not saying?" She didn't flinch. "We've been stalling talks with the Vortan for weeks. Lancer was never meant to hold." He stared. "You knew." She nodded once. "We expected a show of force. A scare. Not an extermination. You used my people as bait." Her silence answered. He stood slowly. "They didn't just kill my team. They erased them. And you helped light the match." Rourke's eyes didn't blink. "You wanted vengeance. I'm giving you war." "I didn't come back for war," he said. "I came back because someone had to remember them. And you think memory wins battles?" I think it decides who we become. The next morning, the inner ring of Terran command gathered. Vorn walked in without a uniform. He wasn't part of them anymore. "Sitrap," barked General Halden. A junior officer stood. "The Vortan have deployed 3 carriers to the outer rim. Their ambassador withdrew from the neutrality accord an hour ago." Halden glanced at Vorn. "Satisfied? Your martyr tape worked." Elias didn't answer. He walked to the map. Tapped a region near the Vega corridor. "They're not preparing for occupation. They're setting up a perimeter." Rourke frowned. "To stop what?" He turned. "Us." Later that day, Vorn found himself walking the old memorial corridor. The names of the fallen etched in crystal. Too many names. Not enough space. He stopped at a newer panel, still being engraved. Lancer Station, 87 Kia. He touched the name Lieutenant Mara Eyes. Her name, her laugh, her precision. All gone because someone thought strategy required sacrifice. A voice spoke behind him. "You don't belong here." He turned to see Admiral Nien. Cold eyes. Sharper tongue. "You gave the enemy what they needed," Nien said. "Proof we'll act from emotion. I gave our dead a voice." Nien shook his head. "You buried our leverage." "No. I buried your lies." Back in his quarters, Vorn sat alone. He hadn't slept in days. Not properly. His comm link pinged. Encrypted. Unknown signature. He tapped it open. A single line appeared. "They've moved the children." He froze. Typed. "Where?" No response. He tried again. Nothing. He stared at the words. "They've moved the children." The Vortan hadn't just attacked Lancer. They had known what it held. A covert evac shelter. Hidden beneath the command deck. 10 miners. Diplomats' sons and daughters. He'd hidden them when the shelling began. They weren't in the footage. Weren't in the casualty logs. Because they weren't found. Not by us. He rose. Grabbed his sidearm. Walked straight to Rourke's office. She stood when he entered. "You knew about the evac shelter," he said. She didn't deny it. "And you said nothing." "It was classified." "No," he said. "It was inconvenient." She moved toward him. "Elias. Where are they?" "We don't know." He stepped closer. "Did you ever try?" A beat. Then she said it. "No." He lowered the weapon. "You're not leading this war." "Then who is?" He looked her dead in the eye. "I am." The truth didn't break Elias Vorn all at once. It cracked him in silence, one file, one detail, one name at a time. He sat in a dim decryption bay beneath Sierra Bastion, alone except for a flickering holoscreen and the memory of those lost at Lancer. The children. Mara. Every decision made above his head like they were numbers on a board. The data drive Rourke tried to bury wasn't buried well enough. Encrypted under obsolete council codes, the contents were time-stamped 2 days before the attack. Transfer order, Vortan contact point, DSN 773. Priority clearance, Omega level. Subject, civilian evacuees, 10 miners, diplomatic class. Vorn stared at the authorization. Signature, Admiral Nien. The same man who told him he gave the enemy proof of emotion. He didn't go to command. He went to the undernet. In the maze of Earth's silent satellites and shadow terminals, there were still allies who didn't wear uniforms. He reached one of them. Name read. No first name. No face, even in the transmission. "You're late," the voice said. "I wasn't invited. I read your dead drop. You want proof. I want location." The pause was short. "They didn't kill the kids." That should have felt like relief. It didn't. "They handed them over," Red continued. "Not to the Vortan. To someone worse." "Worse?" "Zarek Syndicate. They're not an empire. They buy empires." Elias clenched his fists. "Where?" A new coordinate loaded onto his screen. An asteroid sector between Terran airspace and the Vortan dead zones. Unclaimed. Unlit. Red added one final note. You go there, you're not coming back clean. I'm not going to come back at all, Elias said. At Sierra's hangar bay, he bypassed protocol. Stole a jump jet. No insignia. No broadcast beacon. A ghost like he'd become. As he loaded weapons into the bay, someone stepped into the frame. Marshal Rourke. You're not cleared for departure, she said. He didn't stop. She sighed. You were right. He paused. The deal with the Vortan. It was never about strategy, she admitted. It was politics. Nian made contact months before Lancer fell. He sold them children. No, she said. He sold them you. The children were part of the bait. Elias turned. I want your authority code. She hesitated. If you believe in what's left of us, he said, give me that code. Let me bring them home. She pulled a coin-shaped chip from her jacket. Handed it over. For the record, she said, I voted against Lancer's deployment. He slid the chip into his chest rig. Then maybe there's still something human left in you. The Zarek outpost floated like a tumor in space. No designation. No lights. Just a fractured rock pitted with embedded tech and guarded by drones built for silence, not war. Elias slipped through their outer net on manual controls. No AI. No chatter. Just gut and instinct. He docked on the dark side of the station. Breached the hatch manually. Inside, it smelled like oil and entropy. Machinery throbbed. Walls pulsed with latent power. He moved fast. Clean. Silent. The first corridor led to holding cells, dozens. He found them in the third row. 10 children. Thin. Awake. Eyes like glass. The eldest, maybe 12, recognized him. You're real, she whispered. I'm late, he said. But I'm here. She clutched the bars. They said you'd forgotten us? Not a chance. He hacked the lock manually. Took too long. Alarm lights flickered. Backup was coming. He handed each child a locator tag. Stick close. No matter what. The girl hesitated. They said the people who sent us here were Terran. He nodded once. They lied. They didn't get out clean. By the time they reached the hangar, the Zarek enforcers had formed a wall, 6 of them. Each one wrapped in reactive armor, faces blank, weapons glowing with plasma heat. The kids froze. Elias stepped forward alone. One of the enforcers spoke. This isn't your fight anymore, Commander. You want to walk away, walk? I'm not here for war, Elias said. Then put down the weapon. He didn't. You know what we are. Yes, Elias said. You're what's left when empires rot from the inside. He lifted the sidearm and opened fire. The fight lasted 12 seconds. He took 2 rounds to the side. One clipped his shoulder. But they fell. Every one of them. When the last body hit the floor, he holstered the weapon and looked at the kids. You ready to go home? They nodded. Back in orbit, his stolen jump jet limped toward Terran space. Bleeding oxygen. Lights flickering. The girl sat beside him. Why did they do it? She asked. Because they were scared, he said. Of us? Of what we'd remember. He sent one final message from the jump jet, encrypted and wideband. No music. No speech. Just footage of 10 children sleeping under heat blankets, alive. Then a line of text. You don't get to decide who we are. Not anymore. He closed the channel. And blacked out. Elias Vorn woke to whispers and medical lights, too bright, too clean. His ribs ached. His side was bandaged. And his arm was strapped down with an 4 humming in slow rhythm. He turned his head. 10 children lay in beds nearby, each sleeping under Terran flags used as blankets. Someone had done that intentionally. Marshal Rourke stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed, lips tight. You're lucky you coded your return vector, she said. Another 30 minutes and the jet would have iced over. Elias rasped. They made it? All 10. No injuries. Malnourished but alive? He nodded. Once. That was all he needed. Where's Nian? He asked. Rourke didn't blink. Gone. Gone? Disappeared during the broadcast. Took a private shuttle. Cleared it himself. We haven't found him. He sat up despite the pain. You will. She didn't argue. By morning, the footage of Elias's rescue had gone viral across the Terran colonies. No voiceover. No grand speech. Just images. 1. Elias lifting a child from a cell. 2. A bloodied but standing commander stepping off a fractured jet. 3. 10 survivors saluting in silence beside the memorial wall of Lancer Station. The images did more than stir sympathy. They ignited rage. Across Mars, banners flew. On Europa, recruitment doubled in hours. Titan's Council voted unanimously, support Earth. No conditions. Even distant Vega, known for neutrality, closed its borders to Vortan vessels. The galaxy wasn't watching anymore. It was choosing sides. In the Council Dome, at the edge of Terran-neutral space, an emergency session was called. The Vortan ambassador arrived cloaked in shadow. Barely spoke. Too late for diplomacy now. Elias walked into the chamber with no uniform, no medals. Just the children behind him, silent witnesses to everything the galaxy tried to erase. No announcements. No applause. He stepped to the center of the floor and laid down a single data pad. This contains the signed authorization of Admiral Nian, he said. Proof that a Terran official collaborated with enemy interests. He used Lancer as bait. He delivered our children to be forgotten. Whispers rippled. The Vortan didn't break the treaty, Elias continued. We did. But not all of us. Rourke stood behind him. Silent support. The Calyx delegate, a species known for slow judgment, spoke first. And now you demand justice? No, Elias said. Now I define it. Across the system, Earth launched Protocol Emberlight. Every hidden fleet, every mothballed warship, every orbital cannon once thought decommissioned, online. Not to strike. To show. The message was clear. Earth remembers. Earth forgives nothing. The Vortan Empire tried to hold its ground. They deployed 2 dreadnoughts along the Sol perimeter. Both were intercepted by unmanned drone swarms, never fired a shot. Both turned back. Not out of fear. Out of understanding. This wasn't war. This was reckoning. Nian was found 4 days later. Drifting near the rings of Cassini Prime. His shuttle had failed. Or been sabotaged. No life signs. Just a data log. He never confessed. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. Elias Vorn returned to Lancer Station, not as a soldier, but as a builder. The wreckage had been cleared. A new dome laid in its place. A single statue stood in the atrium. Not of him. Not of Rourke. Of Mara Eyes. Helmet under her arm. Gaze forward. The inscription read, We die. But we do not vanish. Beside the statue, the 10 rescued children placed a sealed capsule. Inside, letters, drawings, broken locket, a crayon sketch of stars. And one sentence written by the eldest girl. You didn't forget us. Later, as stars began to rise over the artificial sky dome, Rourke found Elias on the observation deck. He didn't look at her. Will there be another one? He asked. Another empire that thinks we're soft? That underestimates us? Eventually, she said. History runs in circles. He nodded. I'm not angry anymore. She tilted her head. I'm ready. He turned to her. They wanted to write us out. All of us. Quietly. Surgically. Like we were a problem to clean up. She stepped closer. And now? Elias looked out into the void. Now the galaxy knows what happens when you try to erase the wrong species. Final image. A child stands alone at the rebuilt Lancer Overlook, clutching a worn Terran flag. Behind her, Earth glows bright, unconquered, unafraid. Above her, the stars seem just a little closer. And all around her, the silence listens. Not as a void, but as a warning.